And it comes down to, is the standard of beauty returning back to size 0? And, I'm a little bit older than you two, I think. Ziggy, I'm not sure how old you are, but I feel like I'm older than you. So if I'm not, I apologize.
I think it's probably safe to say, yeah.
Yeah. I remember back like in the 90s when you would see these models and they would be like waifishly thin. And that was kind of a difference from the 80s. Like 80s models I thought were, just very kind of normal, average size or whatever. And then there was this trend into the 90s and even into the early 2000s where you saw these models and they were like waifishly thin. And like Kate Moss is the one that comes to mind, all the time. And so we saw this for like a long period of time. And then there was all this like talk in the media at that point, wasn't really social media, but the media about, is this a bad thing? Because it's, unrealistic body images. Yeah. And so then things kind of changed around 2010 where you saw models like Kate Upton, Ashley Graham, Beyonce, Kim Kardashian, Iskra is another one. And it became more popular for models to be more normal size, which I thought honestly was a great thing. I never was really, from just a personal standpoint, enthralled by like these, pencil thin models. I was like, that just doesn't look, normal to me. Yeah. So when things kind of went to like, more normal size, like, okay, that's a good thing, right? More people are included, inclusivity is always a good thing. You can tell I say that word a lot, inclusivity. But no, and I thought that was great. But then like the pendulum kind of kept swinging. And I'll never forget when I was in the mall, and this was like a few years back, so maybe 5 years ago. And I was walking by this like lingerie store, and it wasn't like Victoria's Secret, but it was like their competitor, and I can't remember what name it is, and I'm not sure if you even said it, I would remember. But it was this lingerie store, not Victoria's Secret. And I remember walking by, and I wasn't even really like paying that much attention, but I just happened to see out of the corner of my eye this picture, and it was this picture of like a lingerie model. It didn't have her face, but it had her body, and like, I mean, she was a large gal, like, I mean, to say it as nicely as possible. And I was like, whoa, that's interesting. Like it's not something you would normally see. And it would just kind of follow that trend of models, they including more people, larger, which I think, is good. But then like it kind of culminated in 2022 with that Calvin Klein ad, and I was asking you if you'd seen this. So throw that up there, right? And this I think is kind of a funny meme. All right, I'm gonna quiz you guys. Do you know who those two people are on the left? Like they're very famous people.
Mark Wahlberg, and then I forget which that girl's name is, but she's a model.
Yep.
Yeah, I have no idea because I recognize Mark Wahlberg.
Yep, so it's Marky Mark, and that's actually Kate Moss. Okay. And that was actually the photo shoot that launched her into the stratosphere. She was really a nobody when she did that photo shoot back in '92. And there's actually some articles that talk about that photo shoot because it was actually really, really famous, and it launched Kate Moss's career. And she said that she was so intimidated by Marky Mark, and that he was kind of a jerk at the time. But anyway, and so then you compare that to the other one where, the models are, definitely, larger size. And so since that, so that was 2022, but in the past 6 months, there has been this like crazy, almost like reversal 180, where it seems like that the fashion standard, the beauty standard is going back to these very small sizes. And so we got a whole lot to kind of unpack here, but like, have you, as being in fashion and having a store, have you seen that or?
Well, the trend with like the whole low rise.
Yeah.
What body type does that look the best on?
Yeah, it's gonna look better on thin people.
Yeah, it looks better on people that don't have a big midsection. But whenever you have high-waisted pants,
right,
like
covers it up.
I love high-waisted pants, but it's more flattering on all body figures. But low rise is only flattering on thin girls.
And you think the low rise is more recent, kind of becoming popular?
Yeah.
Like, in how long of a time frame? Because I'm just trying to correlate.
In the past year.
Yeah, in the past year. Well, and I would say that too. And some of the things to kind of like make that kind of known. You think about the Oscars. I know the Oscars was like week before last, but we were gone. So, but there was a lot of like buzz on social media about how at the Oscars everyone looked thinner. And I know we've talked about this multiple times. They're going back to the diabetes drugs like Ozempic. The one that I always talk about is Mounjaro, which is not even out yet. But they were talking about Ozempic, and Jimmy Kimmel had I have a little video there. So you want to roll that video?
You look great. Everybody looks so great. When I look around this room, I can't help but wonder, Is Ozempic right for me?
So, Jimmy Kimmel's even like talking about how, people were looking thin and like, people taking Ozempic. And so, the internet was a buzz, and you actually sent me an article or, that link that was how people were talking about everyone looks so different. And when I started looking through them, they're right. And so Mindy Kaling is one, remember from The Office?
I loved watching her, her on The Office, and then she had that other show called
The
just
Mindy
Mindy
Project.
Project.
The Mindy Project, yeah. She's great. I love her.
She's always been like a thicker girl.
She has, but look at her now. She's like
She looks great. But
she does look
very
great.
Thin.
And so now everyone's like a
thin.
buzz of, is this, Ozempic? It's not even, is this plastic surgery anymore? Because really plastic surgery is not a great weight loss tool at all. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But she looks amazing. And so everyone's like, oh, is Mindy Kaling taking Ozempic? The other one's Lady Gaga. Throw her up there. She looks great right now. Yeah, look at her. She looks like very, very fit. And there was a time when she really kind of, put on some extra weight.
Yeah.
Like she's really kind of thinned down. So, she's one. Like Khloe Kardashian and Meghan Markle are the other two that people are talking about. I didn't throw pictures up because I didn't want it to be all Oscar picks, but looking at them, they do look thinner now. And so, the other one too, the thing that's just kind of funny, and this is just kind of a side note, is when I was doing the research for this, people are talking about this thing called Ozempic face. Have you heard this?
No.
So throw that up there. This is just like a little picture. They're saying,
old man face, right?
yeah, right. Like basically what they're talking about is that when people lose weight, that they look, they call it gaunt or, thinned out. And that's the reason I don't like buccal fat removal, is it thins out your face.
Yeah.
So they're trying to say that there's this thing called Ozempic face. It's really not a thing with Ozempic. It's just the fact that you lose weight. I mean, anyone who loses weight is going to look a little bit older
you lose it
in the
your
face. So
too.
I just want to throw that up there. Ozempic face is not a real thing. If you take that, it's not the drug that's doing it, it's the weight loss.
Yeah.
It's just a very effective weight loss drug. But so there also were some recent articles just like in the past 6 months, and I didn't list them all separately, but I got one like infographic that kind of has them all. So we got British Vogue talking about how only 1% of models are plus size at the last big fashion show. You got Days talking about how fashion's returning to size 0, and that's worrisome. Pop Sugar about why won't fashion embrace inclusivity anymore. The Guardian's talking about how fashion fell out of love with curves. And then finally, Toronto Star, Kardashian bodies are shrinking. What does this all mean? And so all of these articles are talking about the same thing, that there seems to be this very, very recent trend, and I mean like 6 months to maybe a year, of suddenly skinny's back in.
Well, I remember seeing a bunch of stuff about how like Kim and Khloe had like their butts got smaller somehow.
Right, like they either did like liposuction
or they like reverse
their implant. I think that they had
their stuff.
I think that they had Brazilian butt lifts. So that would be fat. So I don't know exactly what.
I just remember when I seeing some like, paparazzi pictures of them, like when they're like at the beach or something. They just were shaped so abnormally. Like their legs were like bean poles, and then their butts were like
they
out
obviously
of
had.
nowhere.
I mean, there is possible for you to have that naturally. I've seen people that have a natural body like that, but more often than not, something like that is due to some sort of surgical.
Yeah. So they don't look like that anymore. They look more proportional now.
Yeah. So I mean, I do think that it is true that we're seeing this kind of recent trend for people, or not people, but the beauty standard or the fashion standard. And I think those things are intertwined, right? Mm-hmm. Fashion and beauty, like it's all the same.
I feel like it's been doing that for forever. Like in the flapper days, it was more in style to be thin and slender.
Oh yeah, I mean, things definitely are cyclic.
It's like, it just is like another wave. It'll go back to
like the larger,